This is the 90 Degree Show brought to you by the Marching Podcast. And now here's your host, the Phantom Podcaster himself, Joe Beard.
Welcome to the 90 Degree Show. I'm your host, Joe Beard, and happy to be of service for you. We appreciate all those listening through iTunes, Facebook, Twitter, our website, our blog, or wherever you are on the interwebs. At the end of the broadcast, if you decide you like the show, then we appreciate a donation to the network if you feel so in your heart, of course. Just simply go to themarchingpodcast.com and click on the donate button to help improve the show and help build our scholarship fund. This podcast is presented to you by Block Band Music and Publishing, The Edge One Productions, and Double Time Entertainment. We hope you enjoy the show. We welcome you to the 2016 season of the 90 Degree Show. We're happy to talk another year about our beloved schools. Super excited to be broadcasting in our own studio and ready to introduce the new format to the show. We're not taking calls in accordance with Blog Talk Radio anymore. However, if you would like to be on the show and be a part of our recording, you are welcome to do so. We wish you a happy holidays from the TNP Network, and we thank you for a prosperous 2016 and look forward to another year and building scholarships for our schools. We welcome you to the 2016 season of the 90 Degree Show and happy to talk another year about our beloved schools. Super excited to be broadcasting in our own studio this year and ready to introduce the new format for the show. In this podcast, we talk to Bridget Bell and Rashad Waters about their plans for Christmas and what they did this past week, including talking about the Midwest Band Directors Clinic in Chicago, Illinois. We then talk in an article from collegemarching.com about the National Collegiate Marching Band Championships and Festival that will take place in December 2017. We discuss what we think of the event. We discuss the format, which reopens another discussion that Bridget and Rashad had earlier this year about philosophies in arranging and musicality. We wrap up the podcast with the Celebration Bowl between the SWAC champion and the MEAC champ that starts the Bowl Championship Series that ends in the college football playoff on New Year's Eve. The football game itself was actually really good, with Grambling State edging out Central in the end. Everyone will be talking about for some time the unsportsmanlike penalty that pushed the extra point back. Shout out to our very own Christy Walker, posted on Instagram, excessive Celebration Bowl to kind of poke fun at the Eagles. But we kid because we love. You can email the show at marchingpodcast@gmail.com, tweet us at marchingpodcast, or follow our blog 4.themarchingpodcast.com. Now here with the Marching Podcast. We just finished up the last championship here with the Celebration Bowl. And in this podcast, we have the great Bridget Bell. What's going on tonight, Miss Bell?
Good evening. How are you?
I'm
Good to be
doing
back
well.
on tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being on. And the magnanimous Rashad Waters. What's going on tonight, Rashad?
What's happening, man? Everything is doing great here in the Cackalack, man. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Oh,
Yeah, I saw your
wonderful.
page. You're showing pictures of downtown Durham. Checking out downtown Durham. So
Oh yeah, the metropolis.
the metropolis.
That's right.
That's what's up. That's what's up. So it is also a holiday month, just like we did for Thanksgiving. This is also the Christmas month and our New Year's month. So I won't ask you guys about New Year's unless you already know what's going on. But I want to ask you guys, what are your Christmas plans, or what are you going to do for Christmas? So I'll start with you, Bridget. What do you plan to do for Christmas?
Well, I'm starting my plans out in Baltimore with my family. I have a family here, and my daughter's 5, so it's got to be home for Christmas because there's nothing like waking up to your own home and Santa's visit and all those good stuff. So I'll be here to
Right.
get started. Then a few days later, I'll be heading to our real home, which is in Alabama. I'll get to spend a few days out of this cold down in the beautiful city of Lake Eufaula, Alabama. I cannot wait to get home. So just spend a little time with family, a little downtime. It's always good to be able to take some time off work and enjoy family and friends. So that's my plan so far for Christmas.
Okay, that sounds outstanding. Rashad, what do you plan to do for Christmas?
A lot of my plans have already come into fruition, so I will backtrack. Christmas Day, I always open presents with my parents. Go over to their house and spend a lot of time. We always do Christmas pretty big. We exchange a lot of gifts and things. It's just always a lot of fun. Other than that, I will probably be in town. So last Sunday, you guys know that or at least Joe, I know that you know that I sing with male chorus at my church. I'm actually the director. If you guys are familiar with Silent Night by the Temptations,
Uh-huh.
so when I was a kid, it was my dream to sing that song, where they have the guy that sings really high and the guy that sings really low. And so for the last, I guess, 3 years now, my father and I and another guy in the male chorus, we do the leads for that song. So on second Sunday, I was singing the high notes. I actually do the high part.
Yeah,
Dad does the bass part on that song.
Nice.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
so thank you. I send the clip to you. You can add it to this show, playing in the background or something. 2 days in a row now, I have seen Rogue One, and let me tell you, I loved it. Rogue One, the new Star Wars movie. So for those of you guys who are not familiar with how everything works out, so the first movie that came out in 1977 was movie number 4. Then came 5, and then number 6. And then the next movie that came out after that was number 1, and then 2 and 3. And then the one that came out last year was number 7. So this movie is number 3.5. So pretty much they're just doing whatever the heck they want to do.
Wow.
Wow.
But let me tell you, Rogue One was a really great movie, particularly if you are a fan of Darth Vader. He just came through at the end and just, whew, it was terrible. Definitely recommend that because I know we have a lot of overlap between our band fans and our Star Wars fans. And so if you are even mildly a Star Wars fan, make sure that you go check out Rogue One. You will like it.
Now, who is Dark Vader of this movie? Do we know who this person is?
You mean the actor?
Yeah.
Yeah, James Earl Jones played him. He's still the
He's still
voice of
he's
Darth
still
Vader.
Oh, so we don't
He's
really
not
know
the
who
body.
his voice, or we don't see his face.
No, you never see his face. That's what movies 1, 2, and 3 were about. Was about how the young man. So he started out as a little boy, and it followed him through his whole life by how he became Darth Vader.
Oh, yeah. See, just like the Harry Potter stuff, you have to school me on all of that because yeah, I don't know too much about it. I do
Harry
remember
Potter,
Billy.
Marvel, Star Wars. We got to get you up in 2017. We got to get you up to date.
Yes,
Get you caught up.
Marvel. I think I'm catching up with. I have checked out Jessica Jones, and I started the Daredevil joint. Don't really care
Okay.
for the guy that playing it, but
Uh,
so far that seems to be actually pretty good. High action fighting, lot of
10-minute fights.
man. Yeah, man, a lot of cardiovascular work right there. So I like those. Yeah, I like those. So I'm getting into that. Me, Christmas, I'll just be here probably with my family. We just put up the tree right when I finished washing clothes before we started recording. So we just did that. And then Santa will come here. Now, I want to ask you guys, what did you do this past week? So, Bridget, I'll start with you.
This was the 70th year of the Midwest Band and Orchestra Clinic. And it's always held in Chicago, Illinois at the coldest time of the year. It was cold, y'all. It was really cold. The Midwest Band and Orchestra Clinic. I've been going for quite some time now. And it's an outstanding opportunity to, one, grow professionally. If you're in the field of band and orchestra, my band directors, and you have not been to Midwest, make it a priority for 2017. Put it on your whatever list, your promise list, your bucket list, whatever it is, because it's an outstanding time to grow, to network. Man, I'm telling you, it's amazing how in three days or so you can learn so much. But I had the opportunity to meet up with quite a few band directors, all the major music organizations and groups, that's their meetup time. There's a day, I think Thursday, the HBCU Band Directors Consortium, they met. So they meet up. If you're in any of the music fraternities and sororities, they have a time where they do a meets and greet. So it's a great time of networking, great time of learning. All the latest of anything is there at that conference. So I spent my time there, got to meet some wonderful people. So let's see what band directors I ran into. Perry View's band director, had a chance to run into him. He's always there. Thomas Warner from North Carolina A&T, assistant director, had a great time, great conversation with him. He was there. Like I said, a lot of the HBCU directors were there in general. Had a wonderful meetup with the directors from Miles College. Shout out to LeBaron, I think it's Magruder, and Willie Snipes. We did an episode talking about the battle of the bands between Miles College and, was it Talladega?
Yeah,
That was a few weeks ago, and when they saw me and found out who I was, they remember the episode very well. But it was very nice having conversations with them about it and kind of meeting up, hearing different perspectives from the in-house. It's always good to hear people's perspective from in-house. So it was wonderful talking and meeting up. Found out Willie Snipes is from my hometown. Shout out to Big Eufaula, Alabama. Did not know he was from.
I didn't know. Okay.
From Eufaula, which means he's probably like a distant cousin or something, because everybody in the town related somehow.
That's pretty much the only way that you got out of there. Hold on. Oh, you from home? Oh, okay. You might get a pass.
I'm trying to tell you exactly. That's how I kind of got out of that conversation, right? So they were really cool. Talking to them about the bands and sound. I was kind of hard hitting in that episode, and I don't take it back, but I understand their perspective as well. It was really nice just having a moment. I wish I had a little more time to talk to them. I actually ended up leaving a little early because that snowstorm came in, and I cannot stand to be stuck anywhere. So when I heard the little snow was coming through, changed my ticket and got out of there Friday night. But I look forward to having opportunities. I love talking to different directors and just kind of hearing their philosophy on music and all those great things. Great place to be.
Are you teaching yourself right now?
I am. I have, I'm teaching middle school right now, 6 through 8. I'm a music department chair at my school as well. And I have about 225 babies that I work with on a daily basis. So y'all pray for me.
And so I think it's Dr. Zachary, I think.
Yeah, Tim Zachary.
Tim. I was thinking the brother's first names, Zachary or Dr. Zachary for Prairie
Good guy.
View. Yeah, so it's really cool because like on my Facebook page around this time, I see so many band directors and then so many people like you guys that are there, or they're like, you see them like check in to Chicago airport. John Leonard, he did like a little video. I think it's on Instagram. I start to get them confused whether it's like Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, or especially like when people start posting them to all of their pages and stuff. He did a little something where he was walking around at nighttime in the downtown area. I think like in the Loop area, and it was really cool. But it was snow and it was all foggy and everything. It looked super cold. So that's really cool that I see that you guys all assemble there and then people take pictures, because I haven't met a whole lot of people in person, and just seeing them on the, it's really like combining, like you say, it's a really good thing to see. I'm just hoping we can bring something like that to LA. We have like the West Coast, you know what I'm saying? And then it won't be all like crazy weather. Like, the weather going to be like nice.
Right.
So I love Chicago, but that weather, I'm telling you, it's a butt kicker. I want to say Thursday, I woke up, looked at the TV, I said, does that say 0 degrees? I was like, is that a 0?
Oh.
I'm sorry. It was, and with the wind chill, it was like negative 20 something. I was like, oh, okay. Let me get myself together before I get out here to these meetings. I wish they would move that conference to a time when it's not as cold, but sub-zero temperatures in Chicago.
That's tough.
Yeah, it's a little rough.
So now I have a delivery company, Joe. I don't know if you knew that. So I basically working in the medical field now, as far as I'm called to deliver all kinds of things to different people. Let's just say it's very, very important and very life-saving materials. And so it's taken me to a couple places here in North Carolina. So I went to Wilmington last Monday, which is one of the beaches here here in North Carolina. I just had the opportunity to go out on the beach in the middle of the cold, but no, not 0 degrees. But
Right.
it was really beautiful out there. It's a much smaller beach. It's not that developed. And then went out to the riverfront as a part of Wilmington as well. Then a few days later, ended up in Greenville, North Carolina, which is where East Carolina University is. Just had the chance to check out that downtown area as well there. So I really have been just blessed to really see a little bit more of North Carolina than I have seen recently. So make sure that I pay attention to the beauty in the world around me.
Nice. I've always liked that area, especially where you are, Bridget, the little mid-Atlantic area there. It's the perfect assessment of people, and then it's not too many bugs. Because, you keep going down.
Very true.
Yeah,
Very
I don't
true.
be rolling too many bugs, man. So this week I met the West Coast West Siders.
Okay.
And I sent you guys, I think, a thing on Facebook about them. They are from Baltimore, and they moved out to Moreno Valley, which is like 25, 30 minutes from me. Still considered the Inland Empire out here in California. L.A. is on the coast, and goes south of L.A. is Orange County. South of Orange County is San Diego. That's all the coast. So once you start moving inland towards Palm Springs and you get past Pomona, that's considered to be the Inland Empire, and that's where I stay. So Riverside, San Bernardino, a whole bunch of cities y'all might have heard of, Moreno Valley, all of those cities are in the inland. And it's really cool because a lot of times, especially when we trying to start this whole band thing, you got to do everything in L.A. because that's where most of the black folks are. But these people moved out to Moreno Valley. It's closer to me, so I'm able to see them a couple times and peep out where, what they do. And so hopefully I can assist them and do some things. They just really need some horns. And, of course, they need bodies and stuff, but got a lot of drums and then a lot of girls doing, the pom-pom type thing, Definitely, hopefully, we can help them out and bring the craft out here through them, because I think that's the easiest way right now.
And this year, are they trying to get horns this year?
Yeah, they would like to get me or someone to hit up the middle schools and the high schools and actually get them some bodies to come over there. And they practice on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm trying to help them out. We did a chopping it up with the chief academic officer, Martin Rex Kedziora, out of Memphis. He's from Memphis, so help them sponsor the network. So we may start hearing some commercials from West Coast West Siders here on the Marching Podcast Network.
That's really good. They do a great job of pulling kids in at-risk communities off the streets of Baltimore and giving them something positive to do after school. I'm glad to hear that they're doing more of an instrumental component, because here it was kind of like a drum corps and the majorettes, drum and majorettes. So it's great to hear that they're kind of going into the direction too of trying to get kids actually on instruments, wind players. That's really good. But it was a very good group here in Baltimore, working in the community. Probably saved a lot of lives getting kids off the streets, really. So I'm glad to hear that they're doing that out there as well.
I said that's good stuff, but I hear a lot of that drum racism coming out. That drum racism, boy. Drums and instruments too.
What I'm saying is a lot of the community groups out of Baltimore, their drummers and then majorettes. You have about 10 drummers, and then you have about 50, 60 folks who are just shaking and jumping and dancing.
Yeah.
When in actuality, let's give these kids more of a talent also. Let's put more people on instruments is what I'm saying. Develop it into more of a band model.
Corliss Preston is her name, and Charlie Preston is her husband. Talking about she was from the area, and I was like, oh, okay. So she was good.
Need to write music and drill? Get it on the field. Outfit your band. Keep your administrator happy and still have a life. Encountering drama in the process, ain't nobody got time for that. Let Block Band Music assist you with musical arrangements and drills to fit your band, and also the equipment, gear, and accessories to keep the visuals, music, and marching on point. Contact blockbandmusic@gmail.com and see how this worldwide minority-owned business can uplift your band.
This is Gregory Drain, Director of Athletic Bands at Penn State University, former marching Wildcat at Bethune-Cookman University. And you're listening to the 90 Degree Show on the Marching Podcast Network.
There was an article, and I think Christy posted it on my page maybe 2 weeks ago or in the first part of this week for the marching band championships that may take place next year in Columbia, South Carolina. And supposedly it will be crowning a national band champion. It will have 2 parts, chorus style and show bands. It will allow I guess we can start having a competition. We've talked about this off and on throughout the years. Mm-hmm. And I know my man Herbert Stewart to make a championship series of like the HBCU. So shout out to him. We're still working on with that, supporting him with that. But here
Crazy Legs.
Yes, Crazy Legs, Alabama State. View from the sidelines. Y'all check that out. And in the article, if you guys check out the article, it's on collegemarching.com. I wanted to ask you, Bridget, what did you think about this?
The very first thing that came to mind is, who's going to judge this? That's the very first thing that came to my mind. I spent quite a bit of time, a few years, judging the National High Step and Band competition. And college directors judge the high schools. That makes sense. But if we are the top level, then how is this going to be judged? It's kind of like, That kind of gives me a moment of pause. I guess you can pull one person per school or whatever to serve on the panel. I don't know, but then I think that causes bias. So my first question is, how are we judging? High stepping and core style, 2 different styles. And I see that Bands of America and DCI, I think, I'm trying to go back to the article. I think it's going to be kind of linked in with them. So I'm sure they can come up with a kind of a guide or rubric that'll make sense, but it's going to have to be vastly different for both bands. One good component is I can kind of get off my soapbox now, because maybe hearing from a panel of professional that your band is just loud and playing block chords and high trumpets, that's my thing for the season. Maybe hearing it from a panel of professional judges will make directors look at it from a different standpoint. It's just it's the same thing as when we take middle and high school bands to assessments and festivals. When we hear 3 or 4 people telling us the same thing, hey, develop intonation, develop this, develop that, then maybe we will see a greater product from our band programs. I don't know when they would do it, but there's a lot going on, like in that December window. This window, this time of year, there's a lot going on. I think we're putting a lot on everyone's plate.
Rashad, what do you think about the event, man?
I think I'm kind of similar to Bridget for different reasons, but same type of feeling. On one side, I'm actually really excited about it. When I first found out about it, I was really skeptical of it because initially my thought went to, okay, this is going to be completely core style and it's not going to be show style. But then once you sent me the article and I actually, read it and didn't just judge it, I was like, oh, it's areas for show style and for core style bands. That's really cool. And the fact that they're going to be at different times so they're not compete against each other. I say, okay, that's a really cool thing. And I am assuming that it's going to be done from the perspective of there'll be 2 completely different panels of judges, because I think that's exceptionally important that you don't have, unless you have a judge that truly understands both core style and show style, you should not let them judge both. I mean, you just shouldn't, because the styles are very different. However, my concern more so just with the show style bands. There is a major difference in the history of show style bands and core style bands as it pertains to judging. There has been so much judging with core style bands over the years that it's not particularly hard to judge them, because marching is marching. The way you carry your horn is the way you carry. We all carry our horn the same way. Tone quality, the way you sound, these are all the same thing. With show style bands, that is just not the case. We have been, over the course of years and years and years, bands in different areas of the country have been allowed to develop their own styles. And so to determine which style is better is very hard to do. Perfect example of that is percussion sections. So let's say you take a drum line like Norfolk State. Number one, does not use tenor drums. They're highly technical on their snare drums. They do a whole lot with their multi-toms, and they do a whole lot with their bass drums as well. Now, let's put them in a battle against Tennessee State. Okay, Tennessee State has a pretty decent snare drum line. I'm not exactly how good they are, but I know that they're pretty decent. Tennessee State does use multi-toms recently. They're much lower in pitch. They do use tenor drums, and they use unison bass drums.
Are you talking about dead weights?
Dead weights?
Are they like the dead weight drums? No, that's what I call them. I'm sorry. Is that what you mean when you say unison drums, bass drums?
They're all the same size.
Okay, dead weights. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, as opposed to the tonal bass drum.
Gotcha.
And so it's very hard to compare them. Let's just say that Tennessee State had the better snare drum line. Let's just say that they did. Norfolk State brings to the table all these other elements. Is Norfolk State automatically going to win simply because they use tonal bass drums and Tennessee State doesn't? And to see, the thing about judging is you have to be careful, is because when you judge bands, by awarding some bands and really honestly penalizing other bands, what you're saying is that your style is not appropriate. And I have seen that happen with our band programs over the course of the last few years, when judging has started to become something that happens a lot more, is that our band programs are starting to change a little bit to fit the style. Because, one of the things about us, and one of the things that I enjoy, is I like a strong band. I like a band that sounds good. But when I go to a show style band competition, I'm not there to hear a core style band. I want to hear the sound. I want to hear good quality sound, but I want to hear the sound. I want to feel the sound. And what you notice is when you're starting to go to band competitions, more and more bands are starting to change up how they play just to win. Then after the performance is over, when they get back in the stands, then they'll play the way they normally play. To me, it's wrong that you're starting to lose some of the components that make the show style band. So that would be my concern, is that you just have to be aware of the different styles of bands, the different sound qualities that different bands in different regions have, the different percussion sections, and be able to find a good middle ground that works, that's going to allow you to judge every band without saying one particular style is better than the other style.
Here you go with the region stuff again. I love you.
Because it's real talk. Because you can't judge Southern University and Bethune-Cookman on the same standards.
You have to.
You just can't.
But I disagree. You have to. Musicality.
They're completely different bands.
Are you telling me that you can't judge Alabama State and LSU on the same standards?
Are you telling me that a jazz band,
Ohio State, or a band like Ohio State,
are you telling me that a jazz band and a concert band can be judged on the same standards?
But you know what? That's two different. In some components, absolutely yes. But that's two absolutely different ensembles, two different arrangements. But I'm talking about the same thing. We're talking about marching band. Marching band is marching band. How we develop our show is totally different. But that's the thing that kind of gets me. You talked about changing to actually fit the style. When I listen to the $1 Million Band, University of Alabama, when I listen to Penn State, when I listen to Ohio State, when I listen to LSU, regionally they're all in different places, but they still have good, for the most part, good musicality, good projection of sound. I think the problem with HBCUs, this is what makes me kind of say, yay, might be what we need. We're so stuck on tradition and traditional elements of, oh, this is good, and we're scared to move outside of the box. At some point, we have to grow. We have to develop. Every field is growing. You can't tell me you can use an IBM computer from 1980 and put it up next to a Mac of today and say, oh, it's the same thing. But no, we have to grow and develop. And so when you talk about doing a show style competition, that's one area where I'm kind of like, well, maybe they do need to hear from, despite what we believe. HBCUs are not the only ones that do show style shows. Ohio State and the Big 12 bands will high step you right on off that field, and we'll do it with more precision. I've seen Penn State high step with more precision than any HBCU I've ever seen. They can do it, but they also can play musically. I'm not saying we want to change everything about who we are in our identity, but I think we need to start aligning our practices. For instance, when I look at people's shows, I'm like, okay, what are we getting at? I just like this song. It's time out for, I like this song. Let's put in this. That's a fast song. That's a slow song. That's a dancer song. Put it together. Maybe we do need something like a college collegiate championship, that's the side that makes me lean over to it so people can start thinking about show development, drilling and designing. I am appalled that college bands are still writing drills out by hand when there is great software like Poware out there. I'm like, come on, guys, get out of that, get out of the 1970s and 60s ages. Let's move with the times.
I agree completely, but we cannot ignore the regionalism. There is a regionalism, that there is certain bands play certain ways, and we should not try to make our bands to conform to certain things. I mean, this is just something that I studied for a while, I looked at for a while. A Southern University, their whole sound concept. When you have the second line bands and they're out there performing and how they perform, and the jazz bands that come from that style do have a different sound. And you know what? What I'm not necessarily arguing about tone quality. Okay, tone quality is tone quality. I agree with that completely. That there is a certain sound that each particular individual should play with. I agree with that completely. Beyond that, how you put the different instruments together in your band, and at what volume level they play with, and how much control would they play with that tone quality, and how you arrange for them. It's all very different. Really the three styles, the Norfolk States, the Bethune-Cookmans, the Southerns, they're all very, very different in their styles. And you just have to be careful. We don't want to have Southern come in there year after year after year and they say, oh, you know what, we don't like what you're doing, Southern, so now Southern, you have to change to be more like Bethune-Cookman. Nobody wants Southern to become Bethune-Cookman. We don't want Bethune-Cookman to become Southern. We don't want them to come to a competition and constantly say, you know what, yeah, you sounded great, Bethune, but you know what, y'all just need to put a lot more edge on that thing and start to sound
like Southern. Don't we already do that? Go read the fifth quarter, go read anybody's post. We're already doing that. Because Southern or Talladega come in playing loud, they were non-musical work cranking, they won. We're not looking at musicality. So we're already doing that. We're already putting the box. We're saying this is the acceptable sound. The sound that comes out of the South, that's the acceptable sound. When a band comes through like a FAMU or someone else playing musically, oh, that was nice, but they need some more power. They need some more of this. So we're already doing that.
Well, I think there's a
great conversation. I love this.
Well, I think it's definitely it's a fine line between some of it. Christy's word is the ignorance or the crankage. You know what I'm saying? and I understand that too, because it does add a little spice to the actual competition. One thing I noticed in the article, it says that the core style bands will be broken down into two categories based on the size. So they'll have over 200 wins and they'll have under 200 wins. Now the show bands will have an open competition focused on musicality, showmanship, and crowd reaction. I'm not sure what that means.
It sounds like from that standpoint, it would be pretty much like Honda. Like Honda, the 8 bands that made it, you guys are in there. And if let's say if Honda were judged, whoever is the best is just the best, and it doesn't matter what size that you are. And it sounds like that's what's going to be happening with the show stars.
Oh, because it maybe won't be as many bands too. Okay. Thank you for that.
I was going to say either that, or I know for the high stepping competition, the first part of the categories, for the first kind of like round, you're broken down by size. But then when you get into the finals, it's just everybody. So that may be kind of the model that they're using also. So first round, Class A, you have a winner out of Class A, Class AA, Class 3A. But then when you get to the finals, we're down to the final 3 bands, and everybody's judged kind of on the same playing field.
One thing that we can't forget, I think, if I'm not mistaken, if I read correctly, it's actually 3 categories of band. Mm-hmm. And I think, Bridget, you actually brought them up. There are what I would call traditional bands. These are bands that do high step. And people always go back and forth between our show style bands and traditional bands and what's the terminology. But traditional bands are bands, for the listening audience here, traditional bands are bands that march traditionally, which is the high step. And so, yeah, just like Bridget said, there's a lot of bands, particularly in the North. And a lot of us down here in the South have never been exposed to that. And they think that every black band is a show style band and every white band is a core style band. And that's just not the case. There's a lot of white bands that are traditional style bands, and they high step. They put on a little bit more of a show. It's different than what show style bands do, but it's still more of a show. And I think that was actually mentioned as a part, as they would be involved as well, but they would not, if I'm not mistaken, that they would not necessarily be competing against each other. More so, like again, like a Honda, more like they would be putting on an exhibition, because it said that those type of bands in general, that's not what they're going for. They're not necessarily going to compete and be all focused in that aspect of it. That they're really more so there to entertain their audience.
Yeah, the festival component allow bands to showcase themselves without any judging. Yeah, that'll be the festival component. So I'm interested the format. I just hope that it's supported well. I'm sure that Texas or whoever shows up, I'm sure that they're going to have a lot of support. I hope that we show up too. I hope the HBCUs have a lot of support and show up and have a good turnout at this thing.
The selection process in itself would be really interesting. There are hundreds, thousands of bands across this country. I think there's a lot of work and challenges that have to be kind of considered prior to moving forward with the model. Like, how do we know which bands are going to go and things? And what happens if a band is going to a bowl game? How are we making selection? Is it a voting process like Honda? I think there's going to be a lot of things to really kind of consider.
Bridget, I'm interested to hear just real quick as far as my initial topic, as far as like the different drum lines, like the different type of drum lines, because I think this is a very real issue that comes up in band competitions where you have the two completely different types of drum lines. Their instrumentations are different, and again, one band having tonal bass drums and another not having tonal bass drums. Those are major components. How do you judge those fairly so that the bands that don't have the tonal bass drums don't always just end up getting at the bottom of the stick just because that's just not what they do in their style?
Okay, so when I say this is where we know that music is very subjective. Let me say that first and foremost. I know, having judged competitions before, when we have bands with tonals versus bands with non-tonals, you have to look at the aspect of musicality. What do you consider more musical?
Me personally, I'm a tenor drum person. I love multi-toms. I love tonal bass drums. But I love tenor drum. So you could do a lot.
Right.
But how do you judge the two different styles in a way?
Double Time Entertainment. Our passion is music and promoting HBCU marching bands as well as high school marching bands through high-quality movie videos and photos. We have worked with BET, Yamaha, Ludwig, Honda Motor Company, and been featured on CNN and Lifetime Network's series Bama State Style. We also help and orchestrate Battle of the Bands with marketing and promotions, and also became the official media team for the Queen City Battle of the Bands in Charlotte, North Carolina. Join Double Time Entertainment on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, and now new on Periscope. Music lovers are noteworthy.
Hey, this is Kitty, and you're listening to the Marching Podcast. Hi, this is Nessa. You're listening to the Marching Podcast.
I think it would come down to your show.
Yeah.
No matter what style that you have, if you had a really good show, maybe another part of the showmanship outshined and made you have a total score better. Let's say, like Rashad, based on what you said, two drum lines going against each other, let's say the judge would give them both a 6 for musicality because both of them were musical based on the instruments that they were performing with, but their score would come down to the overall score, which included the showmanship part and then like the crowd response part. So it wouldn't come down to per se, oh, you had tenors or you had the other instrument y'all were talking, because I don't even know that much about drums, but it wouldn't come down to the different instruments per se. It may come down to something else.
These are very real conversations that we need to have in our art form.
I can't honestly say that I would take off points because, you're not using tonal bass drums.
No, you take it off. Dead weight on the top of the paper.
I will stand corrected if that is not the musical term. It's that word is probably the same thing as when people say cranking, and I cringe when somebody say cranking. But my whole life we've called them deadweights. But I will stand correct if they are. What did you call them, Rashad? What's the correct terminology?
Bass drums. I would say unison bass drums.
Unison bass drums. I stand corrected.
It's just a difference of philosophy. It really comes down maybe similar to football or sports, or folks like to run the ball more or pass the ball more.
Sure.
I know Dr. Davenport talked about Talladega was park and blow, because you just roll up and start blowing. But maybe some folks like that. Getting into the Celebration Bowl or Black National Championship, actual Super Bowl, if you will, our schools. The North Carolina Central, were they the Eagles? And the
Eagles, right?
Grambling State Tigers, because everybody in the SWAC is a tiger. And we're all excited. Grambling showing up 3 times on the national scene, or 3 times for us because of their football team with the success. Yeah. So we'll get into, I wanted to ask you guys, what did you think about halftime? So Bridget, what did you think about the halftime show?
All right, we're going to have to break this down a little bit. Catch the halftime. First of all, ABC's coverage, scale of 1 to 10, I give it a 0.5 because they showed like 30 seconds of both bands. So I had to go and find footage, and I really wanted to see the bands. First of all, the sound quality in the dome, that's a hard place to play, especially for announcing. I don't know if it's a sound system or whatever, because we couldn't hear any of the announcing, which really does add to the show. The sound system thing, I don't know if you guys caught that. I was like, I didn't hear anything anybody's announcer said. So in some instances, I had to kind of guess what was happening.
I literally did not know that there was announcing.
Yeah, they were announcing, but
I couldn't hear.
You got the little Charlie Brown wah sound, because I think it's just the nature of that dome, the Georgia Dome. I just think it's the nature of it. Yeah, I'm going to start with North Carolina Central. I was pleasantly surprised with the show that I saw from North Carolina Central. That was my first time seeing them this year. And the little snippet that ABC gave, I really couldn't get a good feel of the program that they have. But let me tell you, I thought they drilled pretty well. You can tell when a band gets up for another band or when they don't, when they just come like, oh, let me just get through this. I could tell North Carolina Central got up because they were going to go see Grambling. They were in the national championship. I can tell from their energy. So I really kind of appreciate that. I don't know who's working with their color guard and their auxiliary, but I have to give big shout outs to the people working with their color guard. Great use of colors in their flag work, I thought was absolutely outstanding. Even without hearing the announcing, the color, and even the crowd was like, woo, the color they added to the show, it really looked good. And I see that they're going to no shade, but they're going to the North Carolina A&T model of flags doing, the color guard doing everything. You're dancing, you're doing whatever. I mean, I saw the girls using sabers. Really a lot of good work there. Really a good shout out to the band director there, Mr. Howard. I thought they did a really nice job. Percussion was clean. For the most part, they had a good sound. They did a great job playing to the box. That's a hard area to play in. But really, we didn't lose much of their sound. They played to the box for most of the show. At times, the tubas were a little bit overwhelming. But I think that's kind of a struggle a lot of bands have been having the last 2 years, trumpet sections. You kind of lose them at some points because the tubas were powerful, the middle voicing is powerful, but you kind of they were kind of losing the trumpets at some point. I thought the dance routine was pretty okay. That's that one time when you kind of really need announcing so you can know what's going on. But I'm going to pause at North Carolina Central. But overall, I thought North Carolina Central did a nice show. I was pleasantly surprised. Grambling is easy. They did the same show they did at the Bayou Classic.
They did the same show 3 weeks in a row.
Like, come on. And you on national TV. You
national TV and world renowned.
And let me tell you, and they made sure they said that on ABC. I heard more of that than I heard of the band. The world renowned. Grambling. And I was just like, but they did the same show.
Oh, disappointing.
They need to let the mannequin thing go. The mannequin challenge. Don't do that no more, y'all. They need to go ahead and let that go. But Grambling, you know how I feel about them. You're doing too much. It's a Ringling Brothers circus. When the dancers were dancing, like at one point I thought the band was going to run over the dancers doing their dance feature. So I was like, are they marching into them? I mean, they have the dancers, I think it was like 9 or 10 dancers, and they have them stuck from the 45 to the 45-yard line. Them girls can't dance. They can't move anywhere. If they back up any, they're going to run into a line. And if they move out any, they're going to run into somebody. It's just too much. I'm still not a big fan of that. They lost a lot of feel. But let me tell you what was the funniest thing. The rolling bass drum felt like, you ever been in traffic and a car broke down in the middle of the highway? and everybody's going around them. That was Gremlin and that rolling bass drum. Did you see when they just stopped on the 50-yard line? And I was just in there like, they didn't even drill. They stopped. I was like, I don't know if one of the wheels broke on the drum or it was just a part of the model. Lord, don't let me run into one of the Gremlin band directors because I know I'm going to get it for this. But I think they broke down on the 50-yard line or something. I don't know. It was really it was really, in seriousness, it was a distractor. I was like, why are they just standing there? And the guy who holds it, I guess he gets pretty good scholarship money for just carting that drum.
Oh, Lord.
I wonder
He
about that.
stopped and was picking up stuff at one point, and I was just like, what are they doing? Rolling bass drum, I know part of their tradition, but I'm going to say but. I will say the Good and Gremlin show, they know how to use those white shoes well. They do. They know how to do the feet thing to really make it pop.
Oh, that's their bread and butter, boy. They get down on the ground and kick it up, boy.
I was like, they got all the little happy feet dances down. They do that. They do that very well. But the Ringling Brother, the three-ring Ringling Brother Circus, I'm just over it with Gremlin. And I would love their show so much better if they just stood still sometime.
Right.
Like drill, stand, give the dancers their moment. Don't collapse in on them. Give them their moment. You don't know when the dance routine starts or ends. I don't know when the next thing is starting or ending, and that kind of really bothers me.
That's right. Just stand and crank. Ain't that right, Bridget? Just stand and crank. That's what they need to do more.
What do we say about that word? Y'all gonna make me start using that words again. I'll give it to North Carolina Central.
All right, Rashad, what you think, man?
The two bands, the way that they started developing the style that they do is very different. However, they do have very similar styles at this point. They do both play relatively intricate things on the field. They do both do, as you called it, Joe, what do you call it? The hybrid style.
Yeah.
You know, when you're facing to the front, you're using a lot of some of the core style techniques. They both do have a lot of very accurate percussions playing in there. I can really appreciate a lot of the things that North Carolina Central is trying to do. When I saw North Carolina Central's show, I saw a lot of the things that they were trying to do, but sometimes I saw that people weren't marching exactly the same distance, or, you know, maybe this didn't sound perfect, maybe it didn't sound as full as it possibly could have sounded, because when you're doing a lot, when you have a lot going on in your music, it's harder to sound full. You have to work, every single person, every single musical line has to be that much more precise to give it the same effect. I saw an imperfect show for North Carolina Central. I will completely agree with Bridget when it comes to the color guard, at least just when it comes to the colors. I thought they did great choices as far as their colors were concerned. I said, wow, that's really cool how they're doing these different things. I saw them make the North Carolina shape. Maybe I don't know my state's geography that well. I kind of felt it was a little flat, a little flatter than North Carolina normally is, just a little bit, at least on that western side where the mountains are. From a musical standpoint, I enjoyed their show, but just I always try to watch every single show as a musician and as a non-musician. As a non-musician, I was like, okay, that was pretty cool, but I didn't really get excited about it. Gremlin's show I thought it was really, for me, one of the best performances I had seen from Gremlin. I'm always on Gremlin's case, like all the time, about those doggone step twos, because every time they do a step two, it just turns, it's like they take about 6 steps and it looks good, and then it turns into a mesh net on the field, instead of straight lines. But I thought they actually did a decent job with those step twos this time. I have to have them give them props.
They've been doing that show all year.
I'm about to say they had practice. They had practice.
I know.
Let's look at North Carolina Central. I don't know how long they've been doing that show that they did now, but I know that their first show they did that half the year. I do know that because I saw them 3 times in person. We got to give equal billing to both bands here. But as far as Gremlin was concerned, I don't think they sounded as good. I thought their music was not nearly as challenging as North Carolina Central's music. However, with their level of difficulty, I thought they did a better job of playing their music. And again, there is the double-edged sword right there. It's that somebody that's doing something that's not as tough as what you're doing can come in and take what you're doing because they're able to perform something that's easier, better. As a non-musician, I enjoyed a lot of the energy that's going on, particularly when it got to the dance routine. I think, Bridget, you said for Central, particularly without having the announcing, it was okay. Versus with Gremlin, like that dance routine was pretty hype. I was very excited to see the Gremlin again. We all know the Gremlin. When they get on the ground and put that foot in the air and then hump, and then put the other foot in the air and hump. That's the Gremlin. Right. And for a couple of years I hadn't seen that. It's like, man, where's the Gremlin? The Gremlin's back. I kind of enjoyed their show. I wouldn't say I really, really enjoyed this show, but I kind of enjoyed this show. I was really back and forth between the two, but I think that overall I did enjoy Gramblin's show a little bit better, just because they did what they did better than what North Carolina Central did.
Rashad, did you feel like Grambling had a consistent sound on the field throughout the show?
A consistent sound? I don't think either band had a consistent sound on the field throughout the show. I think that Grambling was more consistent in what they were doing than Central was.
Now, I really felt like Grambling lost a lot of sound on the field. When they moved, so did the sound. The sound was gone. And until they stopped and turned back to the box, I felt like that's when we received the sound back.
Well, that's true. When you say consistency, I'm thinking you're talking about like individual players. But as far as
that's a different discussion with me. That's a different discussion with me. But yeah, I felt like Carolina Central did a better job of projecting the field, and they're a much smaller program than Grambling. And Grambling, I felt like I was like, I missed most of their songs on the field.
I really liked the intro when they came on the field to North Carolina, so they showing to the world where they're coming from. And I think they did it to the other side of the field, and then they came back and turned back around to play to the other side. So I like that effect. I think Grambling did it similar with the GSU. They did the GS. That was something that they didn't do, so their show was not 100% the same, but they went to the other side last week, in the Bayou. They went to southern side and did the GSU part. So I like that Central did North Carolina to the other side. And I like the drill. Like you said, Rashad, I'm a fan of the hybrid style. So I felt that I never lost any sound when I listened to Central on the field, because they had their horns facing home, right? So I didn't lose anything. And then I thought that they marched well, because I like seeing them march half high step and then I guess some heel toe or whatever, just to keep their formations. I appreciate it because they don't have the numbers to do the step 2 drill like you call them, Rashad. They don't have the numbers to do the kaleidoscope. Can't everybody be Jackson State? You know what I'm saying? Folks just can't be Jackson State. So when you're not that big, you got to do something that's appeasing to the eye. And I think that they do a really good job of just their drill with that size. So I like seeing that. Shout out to DeLeon, 9'6" white shirt. Shout out to him. When they did the dance routine, and going back to Rashad, your formula, talking about like the wow factor thing, I think their wow factor was they had a tight little tuba line, a little beat going, and then everyone broke formation, and then they got in these long lines and did like the back and forth, like I guess like imitating fighting. I don't know like the specific dance move, but I felt that was it looked unorganized. The lines weren't straight. They weren't straight, and I guess that was like supposed to be the pinnacle of their show.
And Joe, we've talked about this before, that a Wild Out has not worked since Wilding Out first came out.
Yeah.
Wild Out first came out when Knuck If You Buck first came out, and that's been like, 8 years ago, and that was cool the first time somebody did it. But since then, Wild Outs never work out. They never work.
That hurt because I wasn't expecting that, but I was already thinking that I liked their drill. I wanted them to finish out with something strong. I did like how they ended their show. Both bands came off the Black Beetle, the Ray Sherman song. I like how Central came off. They did the little Mr. Adams style snippet, commercial snippet. I always call it Mr. Adams because Mr. Adams would just come up with like little commercial edits in the songs he would write. But they actually they were in their block band formation. They did like a snippet of the song. Then they got into another formation to end the show. So I like how they ended that. It was a real smooth transition for the song. As far as Grambling go, I was disappointed that they did the same show. Maybe Central can do that, but you the world renowned. Your football team is showing up and winning all these games. You on national TV. You did it. What was the Bayou? The Bayou and this, I was just really surprised that they did that. And then the SWAC championship, it wasn't, I guess, nationally televised, but they did the same thing at the SWAC championship. So it's just like, come on, world renowned. You couldn't tell me you couldn't come up with a different drill or something. That I wasn't expecting from that. I think they should know better than that. You Grambling, and you from the SWAC. And Jackson State would change their show. So you had to keep up with the Joneses. And so I was really, so that part kind of hurt. Like you said, Bridget, I'm with you. The mannequin challenge, I was like, no, don't do it. Because I've noticed now these trendy things, the younger folks now, that stuff burns out really fast.
Really fast.
It's like, nothing's hot that long. Hi, everyone. This is Joe Beer, the Phantom Podcaster and owner and founder of the Marching Podcast. I want to tell you guys about this website, theedge1pro.com. That's DAEDGE1PRO.com. This is the website of my man Garrett Edgerson, the media director for Southern University's Human Jukebox. If you want to see great bands and a good idea of the HBCU experience, log into theedge1pro.com. Garrett has photos and videos of events on campus, along with parades of bands of all levels. So check out the Edge One Productions and theedge1pro.com.
Hello, this is Dr. Joel Beard, Jackson State alumnus, 1966. I march in the Jackson State Marching Band, which was then called the best band in the land. And you are now listening to the 90 Degrees Show here on the Marching Podcast Network.
Y'all know what's hot right now, though, right? Have y'all seen the Chuck E. Cheese challenge?
No. What's that?
Look it up. Chuck E. Cheese challenge is tight. I'm not sure if it's going to catch on because it's like you got to be a pretty good dancer to be able to do it. I told one of my guys, like, the song that goes along with it, Redbone by Childish Gambino. So, I said, go ahead and write that because we want to be ahead of this. But it's like, it starts with these three guys. And they're like pretending to sing this song, and they're dancing like they are Chuck E. Cheese robots. I don't know if everybody's got Chuck E. Cheese where you are, but it's like a restaurant where they get the robots dancing. Yeah,
it was Showbiz when I was a kid.
They had Showbiz Pizza too.
Yeah,
we had Digger Dan's around me, but Chuck E. Cheese is the main one.
Wow.
So that brings in another element too, as far as you guys check out. I think episodes. I know it's either episode 3 or 4 when Rashad gives his formula or something that you could use to kind of judge. That's one thing I think now we can add to it is the trend factor. Like, are you in when you come up with something? Are you coming up with something that's old? Are you coming up with something that's ahead of the time? Right. You doing the mannequin challenge, or are you making emojis like South Carolina State? Or, you know what, shout out to South Carolina State. I don't know if I'm going to edit this out or not, but South Carolina State they did Nelson Mandela. I'm sorry, I ain't gonna let y'all forget. I love South Carolina State, but Nelson Mandela, and then they did Empire. I mean, you can't beat that.
Are you talking about Empire that they did at Honda?
At the Honda, yes, where Cookie was out. Cookie and Lucius was up front. And then Cookie danced. Cookie was dancing with the band, yo. That was.
Well, you can't see me, but I'm shaking my head very rapidly. No.
Rashad, I don't know if you remember it, but you called it the worst element of the Honda or something. It was pretty bad. But yeah, I remember that.
That's a dead weight right there.
Wow.
But yeah, that trend factor, if you got to be in, you got to come up with something. So the fact they did a mannequin challenge, that kind of hurt me. Or just the fact that they just did the same show. It's just like you knew you were going to have national eyes.
I just don't think they got up for North Carolina Central. You know how you see certain bands and you'll get up for them, you're like, oh man, we're playing such and such. And the whole band, like all week, you're hype. I don't think they got up for North Carolina Central. And that was the impression, even from the fifth quarter, the impression I had is like, oh, we're just kind of doing this. I don't think they gave that show the same energy they would have given if they were playing Southern or somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, North Carolina Central, we're great. I mean, they were 200 plus several years ago. It was something we were paying attention to. Now they're on the come up again. So it's going to be a second before they start to get that recognition again. But it's performances like
excellence at all times.
National performances. We have to make sure that we're ready.
I really want our bands to get out of that mentality. I really do. If directors and students are listening, we need to get up. I struggle in my classroom every day because students don't give the same energy to the same task all the time. I don't care who is in front of you. It could be Boo Boo the Fool's band. I don't care. You get up and give them the same energy and the same attention. That's what excellence really is about.
It really
Why
is.
do I give more weight to if I'm saying I'm going to see Delaware State and then I'm going to see FAMU? Oh, it's FAMU. We got to do this. No, every band you should give, because it's not really about the other band. It should be about you. It should be about what your band produces.
That's a hard one because I know when I was at Smith, and I have to use South Carolina State again. That South Carolina State week, we was more focused. I mean, we was ready, and of course we embarrassed them because they were like, Johnson C. Smith, who is that? I think they took that week off, and they got embarrassed. So y'all check the tape, because in sports you can't really do that.
I was just about to say that
somebody will beat you.
And that is why I am a University of Alabama fan. I am a Roll Tide fan, and I like them because I don't care. Nick Saban doesn't care who he's playing. He could be playing Texas high school. He's gonna bring out his best A game no matter what. They're always looking to be great. That's why I love that team. Our bands have to do the same.
I don't like Alabama.
Oh, too bad. Roll Tide.
Come on, man. They can send some of them people down the street to Stillman, man. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so real quick, in the fifth quarter, Bridget, who do you think was better in the fifth quarter?
Jesus, no, I'm only kidding. I can't call the fifth quarter. Let me start on the Grambling side. Grambling exposed themselves big time. When you play ballads, anything slower, it really shows the core of what's in your band. And buddy, when they played Purple Rain and they played something else, I was like, oh my. On those two songs alone, I would give it to North Carolina Central, that's a stretch to give it to anybody. But the fifth quarter, I was really kind of disappointed with the fifth quarter from both ends. It was kind of dry. It was a bit dry and boring to me. I thought the song selections were like, Grambling kind of cheated a little bit. They started with like one song and then went into a mix. I was like, where did they do that at? You play one song, you get out the way and let the next band play.
I was funny you say that because them and Southern started the Bayou like that. Now, I don't know if they do that every year, but I noticed that they started.
I think it's kind of rude because it almost seemed like they just went from one song to that. It didn't even seem like it flowed together.
Yeah, I'm not sure how, like you said, I'm not sure like how to call it myself. I just thought that Grambling, they didn't really show up for Central, but I thought they could have done better. They didn't have too much energy. The play calling was just they weren't throwing the bomb hits out there. Shout out to Central. I really like what they did, but them missing the entire upper brass, it really hurt them in the fifth. So because I didn't really know what they were playing. I thought that they sounded good, and I felt that they were staying in their lane. They weren't trying to overblow. But Grambling, you supposed to be mopping the floor up with them, but they weren't. And then I don't know if it was the arrangements, but it sounds like those songs you were talking about towards the end, either they didn't know them. It wasn't perfection.
The control wasn't there. Their attacks and releases, they didn't know. Like they didn't sound like they knew the song well. North Carolina Central, I agree with you. I thought, they stayed in their lane and did pretty well. One thing I just need them to reconsider is those flag and dancers dancing at the same time. It was a bit much on the eye.
I know.
Yeah, in the stands, it's a bit much. I know. I didn't understand when Mr. Miles did it, but he moved the flag line from in front of the band. I totally get it now because you don't know what you're looking at. It's too much kind of going on. The dancers, they're throwing their 8 counts, and then the flag line are doing whatever. It's too much. It's almost competitive. Right, yeah, it's almost competitive in front of them. So I would put the flags on the side or in the back or something, or give them some flags to them do some things with that in the stands. But I thought that was a bit much. And I have to say this to my arranger friends. I think the tuba breaks in the middle of songs are becoming a bit much. I think it's lazy arranging. I know some people are going to hate me for saying that, but I think it's lazy arranging. But the tuba breaks in the singing and the whatever.
But come with it. So I hate that too. But if you gonna do it, don't do it that much. But have something crunk that you gonna do.
Yeah. And
like Rashad say, have that uniformity, or have something like a dope chant. Don't sing. Have some type of chant. You know what I'm saying? Do that. But and that would be kind of tight.
Basically, everything that you guys are talking about seems to correspond to what you said at the beginning of this conversation, Joe, as far as that Grambling didn't get up for North Carolina Central. Everything you're describing, it would be symptomatic of a band that doesn't really even care who this other band is on the other side of the field. So they are just, they're just playing. Okay, we got this song. All right, play this. All right, okay, we did this 3-song mix. Go ahead and play this. Like, they really don't care who's on the other side. They're just playing whatever it is that they play.
And even looked like it too. I remember what you were about to say, Rashad. I was going to say it even looked like it too, where when you saw the video of Central of them during the fifth, they look very small. Grambling is used to seeing Jackson State. They're used to seeing Southern. Central looked really small. So kind of piggybacking on what you just said, once they saw them across the field, they were probably like, You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's been a wonderful season. I'm just going to wish everyone a blessed Christmas and a wonderful New Year.
I agree. I think it has been a great season. I think we have seen some great performances, particularly from Southern this year. We saw some really good things from Tennessee State this year. We talked about a lot about that during the Honda. I think we see some bands that are on the come up, like Kentucky State and Morgan State, Norfolk State. We see some great things that are going to be happening. I was very excited and pleased, and I wish it didn't go by so fast. On another note, as far as Block Band is concerned, it has also been a great year for us. We are sitting at right now, I think the number is 879 songs that we have delivered at this point since 2011. Very pleased with that. So that means that by the time that we get to the end of next year, this time next year, we would definitely be sitting at least 1,000 songs that Block Band has put out in roughly 6 years. So that's and that's not to include the fact that they put out so many shoes and so many drumsticks and drum heads and been able to sponsor these competitions. We did mention that the number one high school band in the nation right now is T.W. Andrews High School out of High Point, North Carolina. We actually did their music for them, and we were just very, excited about that, to be able to have that. They also won North Carolina Show Style Championship, High Step in that championship this year as well. Putting the music out there and working really hard and actually seeing that start to pay off when our customers do very, very well. It's just been very enjoyable. Merry Christmas to everybody, and wish you a blessed, Happy New Year.
All right, everyone, we're back. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or a patron to the Marching Podcast, please contact the show and we'll give you the criteria so we can start to build your business using our platform. We'll play your commercial, we'll post your website on our blog, and we'll help send out your information through social media. So contact us so we can help build your business. Thank you very much for listening 2016. We hope you nothing but the best for you and your family in 2017. We'll be back in January with the Chopping It Up show, the 90 Degree show for the Honda, and our TMP Awards to recap the 2016 season.
This is Gregory Drain, Director of Athletic Bands at Penn State University, former Marching Wildcat at Bethune-Cookman University. And you're listening to the 90 Degree Show on the Marching Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Kennedy, and you're listening to the Marching Podcast. Hi, this is Yurko. You're doing what you podcast.
Hello, this is Dr. Joel Beard, Jackson State alumnus, 1966. I march in the Jackson State Marching Band, which was then called the best band in the land. And you are now listening to the 90 Degree Show here on the Marching Podcast Network.
We've come to the end of our podcast. Thank you very much for listening in 2016. Check out the website and donate what's in your heart to themarchingpodcast.com. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Thanks to you for listening. And remember, the lectures you deliver may be very fine and true, but I'd rather get my lesson by observing what you do. See you next time.
Games.